What do you do with a drunken speaker? Well, Attorney General Ken Paxton says he needs to resign. Plus, we've got a new investigative series taking a look at sex trafficking plaguing Texas. I'm Brandon Waltons. This is The Headline. Well, it's been an interesting week, to say the least, in the Texas House. And it all started last weekend when this viral video circulated of Speaker Phelan running the House at the dais, sort of slurring his words, acting unusual. This is the clip.
Mr. Speaker, I move adoption.
Mr. Campbell, send the amendment. The amendment is acceptable to the author. Is there objection to the option amendment? And the chair has none. The amendment is adopted. The chair recognizes Mr. Johnson of Harris. Mr. Johnson of Harris to speak in opposition to the bill.
It's not right. You want Niave? Chair recognizes Ms. Niave Criado to speak in opposition.
The chair recognizes Ms. Niave Criado to speak in opposition to the bill.
Well, that clip went viral on social media over the weekend and came to a head when Attorney General Ken Paxton earlier this week called for Speaker Phelan to resign, citing what he called apparent debilitating intoxication in that video. Well, then the next day, the House General Investigating Committee held a hearing where they essentially brought up a lot of old accusations against Attorney General Ken Paxton and appear at least to be poised to potentially set up impeachment for the Attorney General. Keep in mind, all of this happened within the span of like 24 or 48 hours. So certainly a lot going on there. To unpack it, we've got Quinn Sullivan. Michael, this was something, if we go back to the weekend when this clip was circulating, we had talked about and said, this is certainly strange behavior, on its own, you don't know what's happening. Could be tired, could be any number of things. But it's interesting to see how now the speaker has been silent on the accusations. Has not responded to the accusations for about a week now. And then you have Texas's top lawyer and Ken Paxton calling him out on it.
Yeah, and meanwhile, because the speaker has been silent on it, and because video is easy to obtain, folks have been going through finding all sorts of instances where you get kind of into the later evenings where you see this same apparent behavior, whether it's drunkenness, whether it's medication, whether it's some sort of medical issue, we don't know, but things that folks hadn't really at the individual moment hadn't noticed before are now noticing, and in some ways this kind of goes, Brandon, to the problem of a chamber that has decided to make an enemy of everyone, which the Texas House has. That suddenly everyone is starting to pay a lot closer attention to the behaviors and the activities of the House. For years, it's been a problem. I mean, going back a century, members of the Texas House treating the chamber of the House like the living room of some frat house, with alcohol flowing, and go back to the members' lounge and in the back halls, and even at their desks with little flasks, all very kind of. The open secret in Austin is how in most, as you get later in the session, those late evenings, legislators are, varying degrees of intoxicated, right? But no one talks about it. It's just kind of, you can't breathalyze them while you're sitting there, so who knows, But now you see this video, and you can go through the digital video and find these instances. And I think this is where House members are probably going to have to do some soul searching about, again, they've made enemies of everyone. So you now have everyone feeling like they want to look more closely at the behavior of the leader of the chamber. Because let's face it, I don't think the rank and file Republican members really wanted to kill, go down the line, school choice and border security and on and on and on. I don't think they really wanted to kill things, but their speaker made them do it. And so now they're going to be confronted with the idea of, gosh, everyone hates us.
Yeah, and this has been a problem. To your point, It's been something that has permeated the culture in the Capitol for quite some time, and it looks like now perhaps there's some more eyes on it. But it's one thing for people to observe it. It's another thing for Texas's top lawyer, right, and Ken Paxton, to say something. And it looks like this is now part of a bigger feud that has certainly come to light very quickly, where it appears that the House General Investigating Committee has now for a couple months been preparing this case against Ken Paxton to impeach him. But the thing is they had the hearing, and you're expecting, what's the big bomb they're going to drop? And they're pulling stuff from like 10, 15 years ago in some cases.
Yeah, all things that voters have heard issued by liberal Republicans and leftist Democrats, and voters have rejected. That they have tried putting in front of federal judges, federal courts, kicking it out, trying to put it into state courts, and state courts kicking it out. All this is it's the rumor and the innuendo and the false allegations. And so just trotting it out one more time, as an excuse. But again, it goes to, as you said, what was striking in watching that hearing early in the week, Brandon. I watched almost all the hearing, kind of waiting for, hey, you had 4 investigators. I think all 4 of them are lawyers, hired by the committee. That's not a cheap thing. Hired in secret, by the way, to investigate these allegations against Paxton. And I'm literally listening to them, and it sounds like they are quoting from George P. Bush campaign materials from last year, and Eva Guzman and Texans for Lawsuit Reform hit pieces, and from Democrat hit pieces. They may as well have just been holding up the flyers mailed by his political opponents as evidence, because there's nothing new. And I think again, if you're a House member who's been paying attention, you should be worried. Your chamber has already declared, early on declared war on the lieutenant governor. Okay, but hey, it's just the lieutenant governor, and I'm not from Houston, so it probably doesn't matter. Okay. Oh, well, now we're declaring war on the entire Senate. Well, I've got a senator who's a Republican, and now I'm at war with him. But it's just the lieutenant and just the senator. Well, now we're declaring war on the governor. We're killing his person. Well, the governor too? Well, I'm not sure it's time for this. Now we're going to impeach the attorney general. Well, the attorney general is more popular in my district than I am. Whatever else you might think about Ken Paxton, the guy's been recognized nationwide as the most effective attorney general in going after Joe Biden, going after the Biden administration. So there are all the House members who have to be thinking, did I sign up for a suicide pact when I voted for Dade Phelan? And because I think for a number of these guys, they're going to have to be asking themselves that question as Phelan is demanding that they impeach him, demanding that they take these actions. It's going to be hard for those House members. Yeah,
absolutely. Last question. The big issue as we sort of wrap up the session right now, it ends on Monday, but most of the work has been done. The big thing has been school choice, right? That was the top priority of Governor Greg Abbott. Looks like that's not going to cross the finish line in a regular session. They could be back, or it looks like they probably will be back for a special session. Again, kind of going back to what a House member is supposed to do here, the House has repeatedly voted against school choice. Governor Greg Abbott has not really moved by saying that, he still wants to see meaningful universal school choice in Texas. What gives?
I think a couple things are going to have to give. Number one, I think the governor is going to have to make good on the verbalized threat has been there will be special sessions if you don't deliver. The unspoken corollary to that is, and I'm going to kill legislation that's kind of important to you. So if Greg Abbott wants to get their attention, he's going to have to veto legislation. So now when he calls them back for school choice, he also calls them back for a couple of these things that are important to the House members, less important maybe to the governor. So now they feel the pressure to get it done. If the governor's not willing to do that, then we are going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 27, whatever special sessions that are going to look just like this session did. The governor is going to have to move himself from being the judicious overseer who quietly observes the process, which is kind of how he acts during legislative sessions, to being a much more active and engaged governor if he wants to get this done.
We'll see what happens. Just when you thought it was the end, it looks like it could just be the beginning of an interesting summer and/or fall. Thank you so much, Michael. We'll be right back after this.
If you're not watching the Luke Macias Show, then you are not as engaged as everybody else is in Texas who's trying to make a difference, knowing exactly what's going on so that they can take action on the things that really matter. Guys, watch us on the Roku app for Texas Scorecard. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Get engaged, get more informed, so together we can actually make a bigger difference on things that matter for the future of Texas. God bless you.
Sex slavery is plaguing Texas. Well, that's the subject of Texas Scorecard's latest investigative series. Here to talk about this very important issue, we have Robert Montoya. Robert, this series, which is out this week, and you can read all the articles now at TexasScorecard.com, takes a look at an issue that a lot of people don't realize is so prevalent, and yet your reporting shows this stuff is happening right here in Texas.
Correct, Brandon. This is not the kind of series that I enjoy talking about. Records we looked at in 2019 and 2020 showed at the time that Texas was second only to California in terms of sex slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we talked with two specialists, and they said the problem's gotten worse.
Mm-hmm.
Sex slavery has just metastasized in our state, and it's preying on our children.
Well, and is it a lack of laws? I know that there has been efforts in the state legislature to strengthen laws specifically dealing with sex trafficking, sex slavery. Is that the issue?
So there are two reasons for this. First off, let's talk about the laws. Texas actually has some of the most stellar laws in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
We're a state where it's a felony just to pay for sex. The problem is, one, these laws aren't being enforced. But two, the problem is also our culture. Our culture is rotting and helping feed this issue.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is the biggest factor in pushing some of these victims into sex slavery?
So one of the most predominant factors is for these children, they get pressed into it. More than 50% of the time, predominant factor is they come from a single parent home. Mm-hmm. Right now, we know there's one commentator who said that we live in a fatherless America today. There are no fathers in the home. And for predators, that's easy pickings when you don't have a father figure there because children, they're desperate for one, and a predator will seize on that need.
How does this tie into, we talk a lot about the open border, and there's obviously drug smuggling and human smuggling. How does this issue tie into that?
Well, Celine Rodriguez of Texas Public Policy Foundation, we talked with her. We don't have operational control of our border.
Right.
The Mexican drug cartels, they're smuggling criminals, children, and narcotics into our state. There was one tragic story in our podcast series Exposed for this season where a child was offered as payment to bring this woman into our state illegally. This child was brutally raped. Mm-hmm. But there's an important fact here people should know. Jaco Booyens, he's an immigrant from South Africa. His ministry is dedicated to fighting sex slavery. His own sister was caught into the practice. He said, according to what he's looked at, you take away the open border. Mm-hmm. Let's remove that from the equation. Texas would still be number one right now today for sex slavery. The open border is part of the issue, but a lot of this problem is also homegrown.
Wow. What can be done? How can we actually tackle this issue and solve it?
Well, first let's look at the enforcing law aspect. There have been multiple proposals in the Texas legislature to hold lawless district attorneys accountable. Right now, it doesn't look like they're going to reach the governor's desk. We've asked Governor Abbott if he would put that agenda on a special session if he calls one. We've not heard an answer yet. But there must be a way to hold lawless district attorneys accountable to enforcing the law. Mm-hmm. The second part is we need to restore our culture. And that's not a political solution. That's where each of us individually have to address our own portion of our morality. And also we have to restore the fathers in our homes and restore the nuclear family. Mm-hmm. And parents have to, and we're seeing this is good, must reassert their authority and influence over their children.
Absolutely, and this is such an important issue, and of course you can read that investigative series up at TexasScorecard.com right now. Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you for watching on YouTube. Go ahead, hit like, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you can be notified every time we've got new content for you here at Texas Scorecard. For right now, I'm Brandon Waltons. Have a great weekend.
Do you want to get your news from people who share your values? Texas Scorecard, real news for real Texans.